we caught up with international award-winning filmmaker Ethan D'Aguiar, who showed us how to light the shot for our interview with New Bedford Cable Network.
You can literally just start with anything. I've seen people use photo lamps, regular. I started with a $50 Chinese light, and because the most important thing is diffusion. So what you want is some kind of, I don't know what you call it, cloth, I guess. It's see-through white, and it just softens the light, so there's not harsh shadows. It evenly distributes the light. That's more important. And you know, obviously this is a whole crazy contraption setup, but even just like a shower curtain or wax paper or anything that you can push the light through and disperse it like that and soften it up a bit is fine for when you're starting out. But this stuff is obviously great. So in here it's lined with silver, so it helps amplify the light that's already powerful. But then, like I said, the most important part is that it runs through diffusion. So you don't want harsh shadows, blown out highlights, all of that kind of stuff. So this just helps soften and distribute the light more evenly, so it looks nice, clean, crisp. Generally, when I'm lighting a scene like this for interviews, I focus more on lighting the space instead of the subjects. Obviously, you want to get light on the subjects, but you don't want to overpower them with the light. I mean, I guess it depends. If you want that dramatic, like there's a spotlight on them and everything else is dark in the background. But generally, if you want it to just look nice and natural and suggestive that it's just natural light coming in from the windows, then you want it nice and soft, and you want to concentrate more on lighting the space. Like, I want to get rid of any harsh shadows or any shadows that we're casting on the wall, so that we just give that nice even distribution of light. Oh, and every time you turn a light on, you yell striking, and it's so that people don't look at the light. Although sometimes I've found that when I yell striking, people look right into the light, so it's hit or miss. I'll shut the light off so you can see the difference. Striking. Because you have this diffusion on, it allows you to not have to put the light so bright, and you get this even distribution. When you are lighting subjects, you got to worry about things like reflection in glasses. So this is why that tip of lighting for the space and not for the subject helps out a lot too. Right now I have it at about like almost a 45-degree angle from where I think Hendrik is going to be facing when we start the interview. That way the light will kind of bounce this way and not really show up on camera. People get very conscious about their wrinkles in their face and everything, so to avoid a lot of that, you want to try to get the light as high up as you can. Okay. Anything front, or I've seen people light from the bottom, which just looks like
unflattering.
Yeah, it looks like you're telling scary stories, which is not what you want.
Unless that's what you want.
Unless that's what you want, yeah.
So you have been on a fantastic run. It's something that's beautiful to watch. You had a lot of collaborations and a lot of passion projects. Can you speak on some of those, one of each?
Yeah, so I think the most well-known passion project, I guess I wouldn't really call it a passion project because I did get paid for it, but I did put a lot of passion into it, and I did treat it as if I wasn't getting paid, was Love Letters. So Love Letters for New Bedford, documentary on the arts and culture scene in New Bedford, and we interviewed artists, and they, the initial idea was to interview them about their public art projects. And then once we started getting them talking about New Bedford and why they love it here and why they love the arts community here, it evolved into something way more special than we initially thought. Yeah. So once I recognized that, then it wasn't just a job for me anymore. I was like, this is one of those once in a lifetime kind of opportunities where you can really seize this lightning in a bottle and really do something with it. So, and I think everybody involved really recognized that we had something a lot more special on our hands.
So that was kind of like a hybrid passion kind of job, right?
Yeah.
Something that you've done on your own that you feel very proud of. I've seen a lot of your work. I'm a big fan. But something that you've done on your own that you're very proud of.
I mean, I'm proud of all my stuff. I think it's not any one particular project. It's the fact that I haven't lost, like this hasn't turned into a job for me. It's been a passion this whole time. So I could be doing some, corporate video that nobody's going to see and it's just going to stay within the company, or some cool project like Love Letters, and I'm having just as much fun. But in terms of personal projects, I love doing vlog episodes on YouTube. It's so much fun. A lot of it has to do with like where I travel and really just giving people insight into not just my process, but just kind of like spend the day with me, hang out. I'm in a new place. You guys come along with me. And that's been a lot of fun. And it's also, I mean, in a creative sense, it's like my cinematography playground where I can really experiment with some new technique that I learned on YouTube that I want to try, or some, new gear that I bought and I really want to like mess around with.
What has your interaction with the community of artists in this city been like?
Oh man, it's been great. I mean, from even before I started doing this professionally, there's just always been this big draw of the arts community in New Bedford. It just seems really different. And, you see it in other cities, but it's very like in its own little pocket, its own little corner. In New Bedford, it really feels like it's the entire community, it's the entire city, from city officials down to business owners, down to the individual. So with the ArtNet grant interviews, it was really fun because that's one of my favorite parts of my job is interviewing or just having a conversation with people, getting an insight into their lives, into their art practices, into what really like makes them tick and how they see the world, how they see their art. So that's always super rewarding for me. And, that was the same vibe with the love letters, interviewing all those artists. And it actually, stems a lot of a lot of other projects kind of branch out from that. So
yes. What are some of the tips and tricks that you've learned along the way that really kind of, and there's 1,000 of them, but which ones do you feel kind of stick out that you think other cinematographers or videographers or filmmakers should be wary of, so that way that, kind of get that one out the way?
Yeah. I mean, I think for sure, like, the easy stuff, like keep making passion projects. I try to, maybe this isn't necessarily filmmaking tip, but instead of like watching shows on Netflix or something, which is still very valuable research because I am a filmmaker, so I like to watch those shows and see how they did it. But sometimes I try to replace that with watching like YouTube videos and just, I think keeping that childlike curiosity of how something works and figuring it out and experimenting with it and trial and error. Definitely like don't be afraid to put your work out there. I read this great book by Rick Rubin called The Creative Act, and he said in it, I'm probably going to butcher it, but he said something along the lines of like, you're your first audience member. Like, make art for yourself, and then don't worry about what other people are going to think or what other people are going to do, because when you focus on making something that you like I love all my vlog episodes. Yeah. I make them with no expectation of ever getting paid for it. YouTube ad money would be great, but
of course,
whether or not I get it, I'm still going to be making these vlog episodes because they're so much fun for me. And I like anybody that tells you they don't watch their own stuff, either they don't like it or they just like it's cringy to them or whatever. But like I think people are capping on that. Like I go back and watch my videos constantly, and it's because I've made it for me to enjoy, and then I share it. Once I share it, it's not my video anymore, it's everybody else's.
So you helped us light the shot, and I'm sure it looks fantastic because I can't see it from this side. What other tips and tricks do you have for people that are vital tips and tricks for setting up any shot, cinematography, that can actually kind of also translate into photography as well?
Yeah, so anybody starting out, I would say that, obviously you want to buy the right gear, but gear isn't as important as knowing the fundamentals and knowing how to use that gear. So like I said, lighting for the space, but not the people, that kind of thing. Audio is a huge thing. There's great lav mics for like $100, $150. That's all you need in the beginning, because people will forgive bad video, but they will not forgive bad audio. They will tune out immediately. It doesn't matter how beautiful your shots are.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the camera is important. I have a crazy camera. They filmed the movie The Creator with it, but you don't need that. What you like, our phones now shoot in 4K and 24 frames a second. So just knowing the fundamentals, 24 frames a second is great because it gives that cinematic look. It's what's the closest to what our irises see in real life. Okay. So it gives us that feeling of real life. And then it's just like, with every frame you're telling a story. You're telling a story with the entire piece, but with every single frame you're telling the story. So think consciously about your framing, your composition, what's in the frame, what's not in the frame, because all of that is part of the storytelling process. So, telling a good, compelling story is way more important than the gear that you have.
So the inaugural year for the New Bedford Film Festival was this year. It happened in April. You are the founder of that film festival. Talk to me about it.
It honestly exceeded all of my wildest expectations and dreams, and it was better than I could have imagined. And that seems to be the resounding opinion of everybody. We sent out surveys afterwards for people to give feedback, and we got good constructive criticism that we can take into the next year. But even those people kind of bookended it with compliments. They were like, "Hey, we really loved all this, and some things that could be worked on is this and this and this, but don't take it personally. Like, we loved it, but that's all good because it'll help us give an even better second year." And yeah, I mean, it's just like, again, it was just things went so well, and of course there was little hiccups here and there, like with any event. I mean, we're putting on a huge 4-day event, 3.5-day event, but I just think the most rewarding thing was just like people's faces and their attitudes, and everybody really enjoyed it, and it was a real community driven thing. It just gave me like so much motivation. It really lit a fire under me that some of the things that we thought we'd only be able to do in like year 5, year 6, we're already going to start doing next year. So
you had some showings at different places. Can you talk to me about those different places?
Yeah, so we had Ground Floor Coffee, Groundworks, Gallery X, Steeple Playhouse, Harbor Hotel, Co-Creative. We really wanted to make it feel like a community thing, and being conscious of the fact that a lot of people were traveling out of state or even out of country. We had a guy from Germany come all the way here.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great. He was the man. Lucas, my guy. Yeah, we were conscious about that going into it. So we knew that we were going to be driving a lot of tourism. So we were encouraging people. I mean, Groundworks and Ground Floor were the furthest points away from each other.
Yeah.
But if you were to walk that, you would make a perfect L through downtown. And we were encouraging people to walk down Union Street, explore the shops, go to the restaurants, go to the bars. We don't expect people to sit through like 6 to 8 hours of films all day long.
It's hard to do.
So we were encouraging them with partnerships with businesses and, offering like discounts or a specialty drink or something like that. We just really wanted to make it this community feel. And I think we killed it. I mean, there was people talking about how they wanted to come back and visit New Bedford just to be a tourist and all that stuff. And that's the most rewarding thing, because we're exposing New Bedford to something cool, but also exposing people from out of state, out of country to why New Bedford is already such a great place.
If people want to get involved in the New Bedford Film Festival for the next year, who do they reach out to and how do they reach out to them?
Yeah, so you can go to newbedfordfilmfestival.com. We have all the information on there. Submissions for submitting a film open September 1st. The film festival is going to be in April again this year. We're coinciding opening night with AHA Night. And just reach out, follow NB Film Fest on Instagram. You can follow me, DM me. I answer everything. Any questions, any things like that, just reach out.
Ethan Diaguiar, international award-winning filmmaker, founder of the New Bedford Film Festival, friend of mine, entrepreneur. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming.
We are here at the beautiful Gallery X in downtown New Bedford, Massachusetts, with my friend Mualim, aka Mualim, the funky professor, an amazing musician. And that's a short way to say it, but he's a multi-dimensional and interdisciplinary artist. Thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for your time, my brother. How are you?
Good, brother, good. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure to have you on. It's an honor. You are somebody that has their fingerprint on a lot of things over the span of a lot of time. I don't know that everybody knows you, but for those who don't, give them a little bit about where you come from, what you're doing, and where you're going.
All right. Well, let me start off properly. Wani Kisak, Natasawis Mualim, Nin Masipu Wampanoag. Good day. My name is Mualim. I'm Mashpee Wampanoag. To be precise, I'm a Mashpee Wampanoag elder. However, my other trace goes to the island of Barbados, my mother's side of the family. I grew up in both Mashpee and Bronx, New York. So I'm a Bronx Wampanoag, I guess is the way to put it.
That's beautiful.
I'm a fourth generation musician on my mother's side. My grandfather came here from Barbados, originally was sent to study medicine, but became Well, he was trained as a concert pianist, but he became basically a jazz pianist, band leader, record producer, worked with Decca and Southern, was one of the people who introduced the calypso sound into the American musical backbeat.
Lucky him.
And it was, part of the whole Brill Building development in the Musicians Union back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. In fact, played at the band club in the late 40s, early 50s, right
Here in New Bedford.
Here in New Bedford.
Beautiful.
Now to tell you the funny family tie, so that was my mother's side,
Okay.
New Bedford. My father's side, Mashpee Wampanoag. So you know that if you are from Mashpee, New Bedford is part of
Yes.
your system, because before colonial borders, actually what is now considered the south end of New Bedford and part of the west end was Mashpee Wampanoag territory. It's where we lived in simpatico with a sonnet. So this is all, so when I'm in New Bedford, I'm still home.
Yes.
And very much at home because, I live in New Bedford again now.
Yes.
I've been living in and out of New Bedford few times. Lived on Park Street at one point, had a house there.
Beautiful.
Went back to Mashpee because I needed to be with the folk. Now I'm back in New Bedford.
How long have you been back?
I actually just moved back to New Bedford beginning of the summer.
And what do you find is different? What do you like? What don't you like?
They have gentrified my city. They have killed some of the spirit of the city. The interesting arbitrary ordinances that are being introduced by the administration that seem to only affect businesses and organizations that are either of people of color or work in alliance with people of color is very telling. I think one of the most ridiculous things I saw was what the city called their Juneteenth celebration, where you have, and this is absolutely no disrespect to Pat Loomis, he's a great jazz artist, but when you get an Anglo-Saxon saxophone player to play the Star-Spangled Banner for Juneteenth, you have really demonstrated that you have either no understanding of what Juneteenth is or absolutely no respect for the black and brown people of your city. And these are some of the things that I'm seeing in the city that I'm coming back to.
Have you seen things that you do like?
Oh,
as
what
far as
I
arts
do
and
like is,
culture?
now that I've talked about that.
Yes.
What I like is the countersurgence that I'm seeing. What I love is there's an artistic renaissance going on.
Beautiful.
I love what you guys are doing. Sleepless in New England. First time I saw that, I'm like, ooh, kindreds, yes.
Absolutely.
I love things like what's happening with Co-Creative. I love what's happening at Gallery X. So there's so much creativity happening, the art museum. So these are some of the beautiful things happening. What I'm happy to see, because we talked about this a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
I've so decidedly became an underground artist when I was in college.
Okay.
The first time I was, I should say, faced with the possibility of entering the music industry, and saw the difference between the music business and the music industry, and decided I wanted to be in the music business.
Okay.
Not in the industry. And when you're in the business, you're able to control your own destiny. And this goes back to, I was in high school in New York City. I went to Music and Art High School. And this is when I learned about street theater.
Okay.
And was introduced to the notion that any place you perform becomes a stage, and anybody watching you becomes an audience.
Yes.
And people oftentimes get trapped. This is where the industry brain, you have to perform at a venue. You have to have a promoter. You have to have a manager. You have to have these things. And it's sort of like, well, you have to get booked. And it's like, no, you can, if you know how to, you can book and create and present your own. Well, you know this well.
You can do it yourself.
You do it yourself. And this is how you build up. And I went to college in Boston, went to BU, and that was where I met James Spruill, theater professor. Now again, let me backtrack. I started out as a musician. When I was 10, started out playing the viola.
Okay.
When I got into Music and Art High School when I was 14, started playing piano, studied with my grandfather because I wanted to get into music composition. While at Music and Art, I also developed as a writer.
Yes.
Always interested in conversation, always interested in storytelling. Short story writing, went from short story writing to writing skits and sketches, especially when I was in college, so developed as a playwright.
Yeah.
Subsequent to college, I became part of a theater company in Boston called New African Company that was actually formed officially a couple of weeks before I was born. It was kind of fun.
Okay.
1968. But Jim Spruill and Gustav Johnson created New African Company and created it on the footprint of the model of the Black Arts movement out of New York City, 1960s, theater by, for, and about Black people.
Yeah.
But the other piece that they also focused on was any place is a stage. Any place can become a stage. In fact, one of the quotes Jim Spruill used to give all of us was, you can do all the theater you want, but help me build the stage first.
Oh, that's a good one.
And that's what we stayed with.
Yeah.
And so he planted that in. So when we were dealing with things like, you have theater companies that don't want to get actors who look like us. They don't want playwrights who look like us and write about people who look like us. So we start staging our own theater, our own plays. We first did this on Cape Cod. That's where Oversoul Theater Collective came from. Oversoul Theater Collective started in 1994, and it was a group of Native and Black theater artists who were tired of what was happening and decided we need our own company. And of course,
ourselves, right?
And of course, what becomes funny is when we present ourselves, the first question that often comes up is, well, why are you separating yourself? Wait a minute. We were already separated. It's just now we have some light, we put some light on ourselves.
So as a creative, I know how the creative process can differ from artist to artist to artist. What is your creative process like? Like when you're making anything, but I'd like to hear most interestingly for me is the music, because I always like to ask other musicians, how is it that you come up with your music or your tunes? What's that process like?
It varies. Sometimes I'm hearing something in my head, sometimes I'm hearing something in the wind. Sometimes I'm responding to what I hear a bird doing. Sometimes animals in the woods. Sometimes it's just an idea that, sometimes it's a funny idea. Now, you understand incarnations. Musically, you have the Groovalatos, soul funk band, live music, live musicians. When we pick up turntables and microphones and start doing house music, we become Wamptronica. And
It's like,
it's
it's like looking through the kaleidoscope and just turning it, right? It's
just
the same
shifting it a
color,
little bit.
same picture,
Oh,
but just a
yeah.
little different angle.
Yeah. And so that actually became part of the creativity was, okay, recognizing that people can't accept different things from one artist, so you have to package it a little bit differently. It's kind of like Kellogg has cornflakes and Product 19 and Special K, and they're all really cornflakes, but we got to pretend they're different products.
Marketing.
Yeah, same sort of thing. But creativity, different, like with Wamptronica, this goes back to when I was 16, sneaking into the Paradise Garage and hearing Larry Levon spin what I was just like blown away by and later found out was in Chicago called house music.
House music.
But I heard it first in New York City before people were talking about house music, and then come to find out that the great founder of house music, Frankie Knuckles, was actually a protege of Larry Levon, who I was listening to in New York. So it's like, okay, so this is where we see that evolution. In fact, Frankie Knuckles was from the Bronx.
This brings it all full circle.
Yeah, yeah. So it's sort of like, hey, Chicago can say whatever they want, but their sound came from New York. Hardcore. But with the music process, it's things like, sometimes you just hear a groove. Standing at the edge of the ocean at sunrise, with I've had my takes my eyes. Rumble of the ocean is a song to me. Browse still an allegory, still a reality. Still learning the words to my own song, but
See, but yeah, I do it all the time, but see, that's beautiful.
but things like that.
So how would you have come up with that? Like, do you remember the process of making that? Was that just, you heard the riff, you felt the riff, you saw the words?
It actually started with a drum beat.
With a drum beat?
Zig made a beat and, actually sat down at the kit and recorded a drum beat and said, what do you think of this? And I was like, I like that. And I just started grooving over it and then realized the story that I wanted to tell, which also comes down to creating the music, is what story am I trying to tell? And in that particular story, I wanted to talk about the Thunder Child. The Thunder Child, the Thunder being, the oppositional, the medicine clown, that tradition of the native people. So, or I should say the collective title for the clown, the sacred clowns of native people. So it was like, that's how that song evolved.
Would you have a song in your repertoire that you would like to play for us while we're here?
Okay.
Yeah?
Want me to give you the story behind it?
Yeah, quick, give it to me.
All right. So this is where things flip around. So one of my hats I'm a Black Studies professor at UMass Dartmouth. I teach Black folklore. One of the stories that always fascinated me was Robert Johnson going to the crossroad and supposedly meeting the devil and
Yes.
learning to play the blues. And I'm there thinking, well, if he went to the crossroad, the devil concept is straight up European colonialism. If he went to the crossroad, he met the Yoruba god Elegua, who's the trickster who sits at the crossroad and is the guardian of destiny. He's not the devil, you know, he's the one who makes you face your karma.
Okay.
So thinking about the crossroad blues, I was like, what if I told the story like this? Well, I went down to the crossroads with 3 stones in my hand. Well, I went down to the crossroads with 3 stones in my hand. Oh, hoping to find the answer from a wise old man. He wore a 3-piece suit and had 3 rings on his hand. He wore a 3-piece suit and had 3 rings on his hand. Told me sit on down, and that's where it all began. I said, Baba, oh Baba, one thing I want to know. Baba, oh Baba, teach me how to make that rooster crow. Lad played his guitar, handed it to me, and if you want to hear the rest, it's online. Called The Party at the Crossroads.
Fantastic transition. I love that.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. Marlene, aka the Funky Professor, Oversoul Theater Company, Groovalados, Wamptronica, overall legend in this community. I appreciate you for your time, your energy, for your words, and for your imprint.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on, bro. Things have a way of righting themselves if you let them. Opportunities pass and you regret them. I'm gonna take this time to lay it out on the line. Something that should be obvious could be why we both feel like always right there, but never the right time.
How you doing?
Hey, Mason.
Mason.
Thank you.
A place to make my own. A place that I call home. This place that I call home.